And action, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 154, which is pretty mind-blowing actually. So thank you, Waldek, and also helping us scheduling these meetings or things, like anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. For a thing that we just started doing without a bigger plan, like we're holding strong, I guess.
Yeah, consistency brings trust because people know that stuff is happening consistently in every single week. So almost every single week, except for the holiday. And
exactly. So we're here every week, except the weeks that we aren't here.
That's true. Now that's being super consistent. Now on this episode, we have Vardhaman joining us from Valo Solutions, and a great discussion actually related on the Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 platform development. He's really been focusing on Microsoft Teams side of the house and investigating and building scenarios. He represents Valo Solutions, which recently got actually acquired by the staff-based company and basically designing and building experiences inside of Microsoft 365. Well, Valo is doing that. Staff-based has their other offerings as well, but really, really cool setup and discussion. Now, in the PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365 platform and focusing on the platform side. We always have typically we have a visitor in these shows as well, and we talk in Finglish. So
yes, we always have a guest, except when we don't.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for translating that. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft 365 platform side, and with me as a co-host, Waldek.
Hi, everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I am Cloud Developer Advocate for Microsoft 365 at Microsoft.
Excellent. Today is 17th of February, and we're recording this. Typically, we record on Monday and publish out on Tuesday, but now we're doing this a bit earlier because I will have a family vacation next week, and will be taking some time off, which is good. So I didn't have a time to take a time off during holiday season, so I guess this is now fine to have.
This is a holiday. Well, I mean, it's school holiday season.
Yeah, it's school holiday. It's in the northern hemisphere across different countries. It's the winter break time basically. So right now,
spring break already. I don't know.
Well, in Finland, it's called winter break.
It's still winter. Yeah, because it's still winter.
It's not spring yet. So.
You have winter like from September to April, right? And then,
exactly.
and you have
fair point. That's actually a good point. It's called spring break in some countries. That is actually a good point. Anyway, so let's jump on the interview with Vardhaman, which we just recorded before recording this one, and then we'll do the articles right after that. Welcome, Vardhaman, to our PnP Weekly Show 154. And you're actually second time on the show, but before we start on the topic of this show and deep diving on what you've been doing lately, can you do a quick intro as who you are and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. So Vardhaman Deshpande, I've been in the Microsoft 365 space for over 10 years now. I remember I started at like 2011 or something, right from Sandbox Solutions and Silverlight client object model, that sort of stuff. So good old days, remember all that painfully.
But that was at least from our perspective, that was the thing what we were pushing as the new thing, new shiny thing
exactly,
to do. So.
Exactly, yeah.
We seem to be doing that.
We learn from it.
Yes.
Yeah. So mostly been as a developer up until like few years ago, then kind of moved into technical architect, lead architect role, and a couple of years ago joined Valo, which I've been since then. I've been focused mostly on Teams. And most recently, I have the lead architect role where I focus on all of the Valo products, all the common infrastructure needed, the platform, common libraries, SDKs, GDPR stuff. So all of that, I'm responsible for that. But also worked on a product at Valo for based on mostly Teams. And then most recently, I have been also looking at Teams meeting extensions, which I think we discussed a few in another call. So happy to So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Yeah, and you're based in London, UK, wasn't that the case?
Correct. Yeah, so I live in London. Yeah. So I live there. So, but for the last 5 months, I have been living with family in India. That we had a baby whose first birthday is tomorrow, so that's why we had this call today and
Congratulations.
not tomorrow. Thank you. So yeah, we have been visiting family and living with the grandparents for the last 4 or 5 months, and we can do that because of Teams and
Brilliant.
remote working and things like that. So really happy that we could do this. So next month we're going back again in March, back to the UK.
Which is just exactly on time when the sun comes back and you can see some light as opposed to gray and rainy. And hey, you mentioned that you're building primarily Teams apps. Can you tell a little, like, what kind of apps do you build? What do they do? How do they help users?
Right. So the first product which I worked on for Teams was it was essentially an ideation solution. People are using Teams. Someone posts an idea. People don't want that idea to get lost in the Teams chat, the conversation. So there was a way to pick that message and promote it as an idea, and then people can collaborate on it and so on. So it was basically an ideation solution. So there was like a Teams bot involved. There was messaging extension. So the messaging extension could, you could say with the messaging extension that this message can be a great idea. Where you click on the 3 dots and you could submit it as. And obviously the dashboard was SPFX powered Teams app. And so on. So there was like a lot of the Teams extensibility points were involved in that app. So that basically was like my introduction to the Teams dev platform. At that point, like there was so many different even now, like I'll talk to you about this. Like you posted the reference card. Even now, there's so many different things you need to know just for Teams dev. But 2 years ago, that list was even bigger. Like the Teams.
So
Teams,
we are improving.
Yes.
Which is good to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So for one example I remember is the Teams bot SDK was different to the bot framework SDK. The Teams bot SDK wasn't part of the bot framework, but then later it was merged, and so you had lots of issues like version mismatches. This version of adaptive card SDK doesn't work with this version of bot framework, and this doesn't work with this version of Teams bot. So finally was able to find the right jigsaw puzzle
combination,
combination of all the SDKs, and was able to do that. But was fun. Was fun after a lot of doing SPFX for a few years. Moving into Teams was good trial by fire.
Well, isn't that always the case when you're learning kind of a new technology, a new platform?
Exactly.
So trying to then figure out what's available. And I guess you said already that we improved a lot on that area, right?
Correct. So the Teams, at that point, the App Studio was the way to configure the apps, but now the developer portal is a very, very good experience. And the Teams toolkit is also pretty helpful. It gives you point and click way to configure your apps, include tabs and stuff. So that is a good way. That makes things easy nowadays. And
for sure the documentation has been improved a lot. So that's always
correct.
Sure the key challenge is that, well, if the documentation is not up to date, it doesn't really matter what kind of tooling and capabilities you have, because you don't know how to use them. So I know that Cloud Advocates, among the other people, been really focusing on the Teams platform documentation. So hat off, Waldek, for your team being involved there as well.
For my team, yes, not me.
And I have to
you can claim it. You can claim it. Come on. So,
no. Credits go where credits due.
Tomomi and all of the other ones. So sorry about that. Yeah,
I have to mention that if there's any questions or something, I just mention either Waldek or Rabia on Twitter, and they are responsive. So so you get at least something back, that they can point you in the right direction, or maybe connect you to the right people, and then you're able to find it. So definitely, Waldek's team is definitely helping us out a lot in that sense.
Thank you. Another thing that I wanted to ask, right? So you said you build Teams apps. how do customers look at them? Is that something they're asking for? Are they already there, or are they still in an early stage adopting Teams? Like, where do you see them be, and do you see that demand increasing over time or not?
So what we have seen mostly is not the customers themselves, but like we work with partners, and partners are entrusted with increasing Teams adoption. So one of the ways they kind of increase Teams adoption is by installing or provisioning these apps. So if people use the apps, then naturally they live more in Teams. So they're definitely the partners who want Teams to be adoption and stuff like that. That part definitely plays a role. Also, like as far as Valo specifically is concerned, the flagship product still is the intranet or the digital workplace, and that when that has to also work in Teams, then you can also introduce other apps around it. The intranet is great, news and everything that works great, but then you can have other comms solutions living there as well. Yeah, it's definitely growing though. So it's definitely the demand for it is definitely growing as we go along.
And I guess that is also an interesting thing you mentioned now, that being an ISV, you have the ability to expose the customers to other areas that they might not even think about initially otherwise, right? Like being an SI or somebody who builds apps specific for a customer request,
Correct.
You might often have to work with things like envisioning environments, like basically show customers what they can do so that they can use that when they ideate the solutions that they want to use in a workplace. Whereas ISV, you already have that step because you introduce your product, and along with it, you can introduce hey, this is the main way you can interact with us. But there's also a few other ways in which you can bring the info that we offer into the context of your work. So our app doesn't need to be destination, but you can also expose pieces of that in other places where employees work, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So for us, we think of Teams as just another front end to expose the application. So mobile is one, desktop is another, and Teams is just another way. So it's not just our product should work on the phone, in the browser. They should also work in Teams. It's like a natural front end for the product. So that's definitely how we think about it.
And that's really the key on the partnership with the Microsoft and partners and ISVs as well, because it actually benefits both sides. So you're then promoting the Teams as well, and then you help to show how your functionalities and your applications will help to show the best of the Teams platform. And then that actually will generate an interest among other partners as well, which obviously you don't want to do it, but of course it's in the shared interest of everybody growing the ecosystem, because that helps on growing the usage of the platform as well. So of course, it would be awesome if there wouldn't be any other partners than Valo, right? And Valo would be the only one, and everybody would be using that.
It's called monopoly. You don't want to go there. Another thing that I'm interested in is, because you mentioned you're building apps that are exposed on the web, standalone apps, mobile, and whatnot. What is the challenge that you see thinking about building these apps across all the different experiences and places? Like, is it hard? Like, what are different things you have to take into account?
It is definitely hard. Because there's small things like maybe there's a specific device which contains a specific version of Teams where something specific is broken. So to debug that, you have to align so many different things and then kind of work together with our customer support engineers to kind of finally figure out the right combination to replicate that. So it's just the different devices out there, different configurations, or that's just that is. So it is definitely hard, especially for if it's not just a browser based application. If it's like a Teams tab then that is slightly more difficult. But the good thing about building a Teams application for mobile is because Teams is already going to be installed on like, user phones. So you just add a new tab, and that's it. That you don't need to install a new app. You don't need to, like, if you're building a PWA, you don't need to redirect the customer to a new website or something like that. So that's the one big advantage of, like, just building something right into Teams. It's already there. You can pin it, and then the customers can start using it. So it's like, it has advantages, definitely.
Yeah.
And customers, the pinning, just a recap on the pinning. So customer IT organization can pin your application to be available directly in the Microsoft Teams as even the first application there, which is for example, what we do with quite often Viva Connection and what we've done in Microsoft as well. So but then Viva Connection brings another dimension on top of it, which is in the Viva Connection experience, you can have your additional mobile experiences, which is an interesting additional dimension, which are then linking back to your Teams application. So it's like, wait,
which is the correct point of entry? That's the question. I've for this Teams product itself, I played around with an adaptive card extension based on SPFX as well. I think it was like a slightly maybe a few months ago. And it's like a quick, nice quick glance of your ideas, like just for that, where you click on one and then you're taken to the actual application. So I think for what it wants to do, adaptive card extensions work really well in that case. Like, like someone I was showing it internally to someone, and then someone said, like, this seems really like, TikTok or something, where people just want a quick glance, quick glance of something.
Swipe next.
Swipe. Yeah, exactly. So that's
but that's certainly the idea, because of with the Viva Connection mobile experience, is that you can do the quick operations and actions and quick glance in there. But then for the actual, let's say, focused work, you can go to the specialized applications. So making it easy for building those personalized experiences. So.
Correct. Yeah.
You mentioned a few benefits already, but I'd like you to recap, like how. Like, what benefits do you see building for Teams and 365? Like, why not just build a web app? Like, what benefits do you see with the fact that you can integrate your apps or even expose them inside 365?
I mean, that's it's again the same thing. Like, the partners, our partners and customers who we have been working with for a long time, they are, like, deep into Microsoft 365. They are into Teams, and it's easy for them to have that conversation with the customer that this is so this app is based in M365, and it's not that we only work with that. Like, we can use like the Graph API or something and build it outside of Teams or outside of. So there's our provisioning solution is basically an Electron app which we are building now, and then that uses Graph API and PnP PowerShell and stuff to talk to SharePoint and stuff like that. So it's like, what is the right use case? Can this app? What is the point of this app? Can it live in Teams, or does it need to be outside Teams or outside SharePoint? So that's the
and of course
the use case.
Both.
Yeah,
of course
it can be both. Yeah, exactly. It can be both. It can share the same set of APIs and data and can be exposed in. As I said before, like Teams is another another front end for the apps.
Yeah. So rather than forcing people again move to the full screen mode of the application, you can surface that in there. But of course, if you want to, you can access the application directly as well. So
exactly.
Providing additional, let's say, views and perspectives on accessing the application and services, whatever the ISV is providing. So now you talked already about bots. You touched the bots and messaging extensions and personal application. Can you talk about a bit on what are the things what you built and what is the more, let's say, what's the most natural thing for you to build stuff in the Microsoft Teams, and how you're doing that?
I would say the most natural thing is tabs, because it is the easiest way to build it. But like bots are also like more fun. You can And the thing I like about the bot framework is once you build your bot, you can then play around with multiple extension points. You can have it as Teams, maybe have it as Slack as well. There's a bot framework works with Slack as well, so you can play around with that. But coming back to Teams.
You would only play with Slack, right? Just to be clear. So.
yeah. Exactly. But yeah, the main I will build it in production only for Teams. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's. Tabs. I think I've been working with meeting extensions more recently. I've been exploring them, and I think tabs. If you build a tab, then you can use it across multiple contexts in Teams as well. So the side panel in the meeting extension is a tab. Then the pre-meeting, post-meeting experience is all a tabs. Your personal tab, your channel tab. So if you want to if you are building your first Teams application, I think tabs are an easy low-hanging fruit where you can, depending on the context, you can show different data. So I think tabs would be the easiest thing. I think most natural thing, and hits multiple scenarios as well.
Exactly. It's just the configuration for the tab where it's actually going to be then surfaced and what are the options. Can you talk about without sharing any too much IP and all of that's related on meeting application? You mentioned that you looked into the meeting apps and how to extend in there. What kind of scenarios your company is looking for? If you can share any.
I've
no.
just short answer.
The shortest answer.
Yeah. But I'm exploring it right now. I've been checking at the same thing which I did with bots and tabs 1 year ago or something. I'm just checking what all is possible. Can we use this to enhance any of our products? Not only Teams products, but maybe some other products. Can they benefit by using the meeting apps, or do we need to create completely new products based on meeting apps? That's the one of the things which I'm looking at right now.
And when you think about it that way, do you also look in other things like, could you, for example, use things like Power Platform or Azure Communication Services or Fluid Relay, basically to extend the scope of your apps beyond just Teams and really make even better use of the Microsoft Cloud?
Azure Communication Services definitely, but Power Platform is not it's not the focus right now. In case of ACS, definitely I've played around with the ACS API for meeting participants and getting the so that part is definitely we have explored that. But for now, my exploration is just around getting the samples, seeing how it fits into the meeting experience. One thing I found out is that what is still to happen is the meeting apps to work on the browser version of Teams. So it only works in the desktop and the mobile version, which I think could be which is fair, because I think most people might use it in desktop and phones. But for testing quickly, maybe the browser version could be helpful.
The desktop switching with profiles in desktop is
exactly
a bit challenging. Maybe that's the right word of saying that. So
I think all of us use multiple tenants, and all of us, maybe most of the people listening to this, use multiple tenants and have been through that pain.
If I look at the list of profiles that I have in Edge, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17.
And half of those tenants have already expired, but you should clean it up.
No. Actually not.
Oh, you're keeping things up to date. Okay, so I guess I have 18 or whatever.
One that is tied to So I have one that is tied to the expiring one, and every single time it expires, I will
clever.
Sign out and then I'm in, because I can never memorize the URL.
Yes.
So
25 for me. I have 25.
There you go.
Yeah.
I am
maybe
not
some of them are
here.
different users.
I am on the low
tenant,
end of the number of tenants.
I guess I'm in 22. So
yeah, there you go. There you go. I need to create a few more, I guess.
And for anybody who's wondering, what are we actually talking? So you can create multiple profiles in Edge. So you can do then testing across multiple tenants or multiple identities in the same tenant. So you can basically isolate.
So that you don't need to sign out and in all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you're not using this is the best thing ever. So for anybody who's watching or listening. So,
however, maybe you don't use it because you don't have a need for it, which is even better for your health.
Yes. So, but yeah, as a developer or a person who's testing things, that's for sure super cool. And for us as a Microsoft, we can spin up so many tenants as needed for testing and validation. So at least in my case, it's like, oh, this is expired again. Oh, that's expired again. Okay, fine. So I just need to be more structural like you are, Waldek, on that. So.
Well, but these days, we live in browsers and we have profiles. Sure. But if you think about mobile devs, they would have device wall with 20 devices on them so that you can see your web app or your app or whatever you build, load across all of them, right? Because each device is different screen, different abilities, and you want to be able to test that too. Right, so it's just a different version, virtual version of the device wall.
Is the Android Studio and emulators good enough already for that? But again, so never mind.
For device, for something, but you still might need to have physical device, right?
Yeah. Sure. I think sometimes I've seen things that something works in the emulator but doesn't work on actual device. I've seen issues like that.
Oh, that's painful. These things are hard. These things are hard. And I guess especially with things like touch, you need to feel is the button big enough for you to work comfortably with that? Does it know how it works on the device? If it scrolls or animates too quickly or too slowly, whatever. These are things you can only see on device.
Sure. Yeah. For sure. So. Luckily, nowadays, at least, we are in a relatively well covered if you're checking Android and the latest 2 version of the Android and then iOS rather than different operating systems.
And the Windows phone, right?
Stuff.
The Windows phone.
And Symbian. Remember the Symbian phone? Check it out.
Yes. Okay, yes. Oh, good old days.
No, we're just again showing how old we are. This is not good. So
I remember texting people in Excel on Nokia phone.
Yes. Kelly Rowland advertisement. For those who know that's really good. So because
I think I've seen that image on Twitter, but that's the only image I've seen of that. I don't know the context.
But there was an advertisement. I think it was a Super Bowl advertisement where she was using Nokia Communicator. And you can see that she was using Excel.
There wasn't an ad. There was a clip, a song clip.
Yeah. Oh,
video.
It wasn't a song clip, but I guess there was Super Bowl advertisement, and yes, there might be. It's a video as well.
There was the whole song, I think.
Yeah, where she's sending an SMS using Excel, and then she got disappointed when nobody responded. So it's just but it's pretty awkward that you can see that it's Excel.
Well, actually, the cool thing is, right? Nowadays we can build in Excel scripts.
Yeah, you could actually.
How cool would it be to actually build a script that does that?
Yes.
SPFX Office add-in for texting in Excel.
Yeah.
Let's
then
do
you can send it to Teams and back. Imagine you can get a response in A2 from Teams in your Excel sheet.
That's the killer application. That's how we.
Yeah, exactly. The killer app, texting in Excel.
Yes.
And you could even indent A1, B2, A3. You can have thread.
No.
What's wrong with that? Excel is the best multi-purpose tool there is.
Well, it is for sure one of them. So, and it's used for
better tools for texting. I think maybe just maybe.
Yeah. Choose the tool what fits for the purpose, right?
So, yeah. When to use what? We need probably a chart. Like for texting, don't use Excel. Use something.
But the when to use one is actually I'm doing a donkey bridge here. Segue. Donkey bridge in Dutch. In Finnish, actually, the same thing meaning.
Yeah.
So, which is crazy. Anyway, so that's interesting. Language different, but use the right tool for right purpose is an interesting discussion for sure. In general, if we, from a timing perspective, need to start summing up as well. But in a Microsoft 365, especially because there's so many tools, so many things, and the ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So related on that one, what would be, let's say, what are the tools and how is your company building your experiences? So what is the tool stack for Teams and for the Polar experiences? So what kind of things is Valo using?
Right. So for Teams development, like I myself directly build the manifest directly. So there are, I know, tools like, Yeoman Generator and the dev developer portal out there. That is something we have used before as well. Ngrok is also something we use quite a lot, which is a tunneling service. So just those of you who haven't used Ngrok yet, for the Teams platform to connect to your locally running website, you need to give a publicly available endpoint to Teams, because the Teams platform is running in the cloud. It doesn't know what local host is. So that's why Ngrok creates a public endpoint, which points to your current local machine. So that is essential basically for doing any Teams dev locally. Then Postman, obviously, for testing APIs and stuff. So with Valo, we were recently we merged together with another company called Staffbase, and then we are doing a lot of integrations and looking at their APIs. They are looking at our APIs. So Postman has been really helpful in testing out the APIs and stuff. Other than that, VS Code with lots of extensions, Visual Studio for .NET stuff is something. There's a few extensions in VS Code as well, mainly for Azure related things like ARM templates, which I use quite a lot. If I go to my extensions tab,
how about the UI? Do you use React, Angular, Vue, anything else?
So React mostly. I think we've always used React together with the Fluent UI, and also more recently we have been looking at can we look at some other front end libraries as well. But Fluent UI and React have been our bread and butter. We always use that. That's more or less our so we are focused on TypeScript, React on the front end, and then the .NET, and a few of our apps do also use Node.js in the back end. So that's the hello. Different angle.
Comfortable. Yeah, exactly. Different angle, just to make it more dynamic.
Yeah.
So that was by design, of course. So
yeah.
Of course, your computer broke again.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so
luckily we are just on time. So
yes,
to wrap up.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
But thank you, Vardhaman, for joining on this one. Really, really good discussion. And it's always good. I think one of the stories and cool things is always to hear about what people are building and understanding the technologies, what people are using and all of that, because that helps other partners and the people in community understand that, oh, cool, they're using these things. Maybe I'll have a look on that. So
sure.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah, we're happy to chat, always fun talking to both of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I guess we'll jump then next to the articles on the PnP side. So we'll say thank you, Vardhaman. Have a great few weeks still in India, and have a safe travel back to UK. So
yeah. I'll come visit when I'm back there. So hopefully it will be travel would be easier. Hopefully. Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But thanks, Vardhaman. We'll be certainly in touch, and let's jump with Waldek to the articles.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
And welcome back after the interview. So thank you, Vardhaman, one more time of joining us. Really, really cool discussion. I think it's super valuable for everybody in the community to know what other ones are doing. It validates their thinking and validates their assumptions, and it's always better to. One of the hardest thing is to be in the front of the train or to learn the technology. So having then people who actually do that and share their learnings and practices is super, super beneficial. So thank you, Vardhaman, for helping on that.
Yeah, and also the fact like when you are by yourself or you only talk to folks around you directly, like you might think, do we lag? Are we ahead of the curve, behind the curve? Like where are we? And then you hear others, and it might even help you to kind of get some of that anxiety off, because you're like, you know what, it's good. Like we're okay. Like we're not behind. Like other people have challenges too, or we're ahead of the game because we already went through this phase, right? So it's always interesting to look around you really and see what others do. And I guess like interviews like that are a great way to get a peek basically into somebody else's kitchen in a way.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I still remember back in when we always go back into this dinosaur discussion, but at some point, as we were shipping on-premises software, one of the most painful things, and this is almost the same thing as with cloud, was the fact that you were doing alpha or beta testing or training material for alpha versions of the software, and you got a daily builds from engineering, and you never knew if it's going to work or not, or if it didn't work. Was it because
the UI is changed?
Yeah, or is it or you can't get it configured or installed? Is it now because of you, or is it part of the product or the setup, or did somebody do a mistake? And that's really, really kind of a challenging thing. And I guess that's still the same even with cloud, because there's a lot of tooling which is released in preview, so you don't actually quite know, is it now the problem of you, or is it then in the product or in the tooling, or where's the problem is. So that's why we need people, and luckily we have community people who are testing out and then sharing their learnings, and also letting Microsoft know what do we need. So do we need documentation, setup guidance, if there's issues, finding out those as well, because even though engineering is doing a lot of testing and validation of what they're shipping, it's still engineering. It's not those people who built actual solutions on top of that tooling or framework or whatever it is.
And that part is really invaluable, right? Because people, they have in mind a thing they want to build, and that thing might not be a part of the golden path, as it's called, the ideal path that was used. Like, because when you build something, you cannot envisioning any possible thing there is. You pick a few scenarios, which are the main scenarios, that you try to be as varied as you can, but you cannot include everything. And it's exactly the things that stray of this path, that are trying to push the limits. Like, these are really interesting because they give invaluable feedback. Like, hey, I want to do this, or I want to use it with this external tool or this other thing, and it's hard, it's inconvenient, it doesn't even work, or it breaks. And these are the things that, well, it's not possible for us at Microsoft to know up front, right? And the feedback that we get that way is really invaluable, because at the end, it makes better product for everybody.
Yeah, I remember one of the coolest thing in the in-person conferences is the expo areas for Microsoft engineering as well.
What is in-person conference?
That's true. Good question. So that's when people actually meet in the same room and talk to each other. Now,
so does that mean that you open your browser window not in incognito but in your profile? Is that in person?
In person, yes. Now, but in those conferences, which we used to have, let's see, hopefully we'll get there at some point back, having engineers, actually developers, building the tooling with you and talk to partners who are building capabilities on top of it, and the lights when you see the engineers light, it's like, wow, this is I've never. Wow, this is the stuff what
you're doing. What?
And that's reaction as well. It's like, we never intended that to be used like that, but that's cool. Wow. So so the assumptions in the PM and engineering organization versus the reality, and there's this every now and then there's like oh my God, I had no idea. So that's
but it's for everything. Like the other day I saw a movie about that was the behind the scenes of making a car, premium brand. And basically at some point, like they went through the stage where they make a model and all of that, and at some point they say someone's like what if a person that is taller than 2 meters, like 210, would sit on the back seat? And basically they realized that the roof would go like through the middle of their head. Like nobody even thought about it at first. And these are people who build cars for living, right? Like pros.
Yep.
Right. So it doesn't surprise that like there are always edge cases that you might not think of first, but they are still there. And at the end of the day, you want to find a way to accommodate that.
Absolutely. Cool. Anyway, let's actually jump on the articles. So we don't have a massive amount of new articles today, but
and that is our fault.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
And the reason 100%. For that is that we're recording just a few days after the last episode, so it's just few days of time. So we're not playing fair. We didn't give people enough time to write and share their
that is true. 100%.
Findings.
Yes, absolutely. Now, let's start with the Microsoft side of the house. So in the Microsoft 365 blog, there was an interesting blog article related on measure your cloud carbon footprint with the emission impact dashboard in Microsoft 365. This is actually super cool, let's say, way of showing how the cloud is using its emissions and how you can actually impact on those and versus the on-premises side of the house. So estimates emissions saved by moving to the cloud. So you can basically have some sort of a high level of view on the emissions which are getting saved. And this is actually really, really cool because, of course, as we move from dedicated data centers and hosting in on-premises to centralized hosted capabilities in cloud, it's much more cost efficient and it has less emissions because we can centrally save those emissions by using solar power or wind power and think about other ways of saving that thing. Really, really cool.
Is this based on research or is it based on the real-time usage in your farm? Or
to be honest, I do not know right now. That is a really, really good question.
Because one thing that I'd love to know, like you deploy all kinds of apps, like you use things.
No, it's actually
what is
usage.
The footprint?
Yeah. Yes, that's the actual usage.
Brilliant.
Yes.
This is so cool.
Yeah, that's actually really, really cool. So, and then you can actually see the trends related on that in the organization. Oh, that zoom in didn't work that well. So
it's zoom out.
It's zoom out. Wow. Okay. But you can see the trend and how things are moving. That's actually really, really cool. So
yeah. Yeah, and especially if you think about it, like if that would include additional apps you add on top and then combine it with tips, like here's how you can make them more efficient.
Yeah,
that would be brilliant.
I think that
would be really
the
cool.
Ultimate goal of that one is heading to that direction. Because again, if you have super resource intensive application, it will of course consume more energy and power, and then that will have more emissions. So it's actually really cool that we are and already at this level on thinking how to save planet or make our life greener. So really, really cool stuff. So.
Yeah,
awesome. On the developer blog side, we had a blog post from Nick around learn how to create secure identity solution using Microsoft's identity platform. And this is really around reminding on the assets which we have available in the Docs platform and how to actually start using the MSAL, how to start using identity platform, the basic on the authentication of that. And all of this has evolved so much within the past years to make it easier to consume and access and to get started. So the documentation is so much better. I guess at some point it was quite hard to understand ADL and then, or no, I will not use any of these libraries because I will do the HTTP dance by myself. And nowadays it's probably not the wisest thing to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the key part here is right that whenever you build an app on Microsoft 365, identity is centerpiece. Like it's it's prerequisite for any of your work, and it's the first thing. And it's not necessarily the easiest thing, because it's not the thing that we do that much. You typically do it once, it works, and then you don't do anything more about it. So with that, like, we don't get enough cycles to train the muscle, to build the muscle, which is why exactly it's extra important for everybody really to understand how it works, because you need it in every single app you're going to build on Microsoft 365. You need identity, right? It's really necessary.
And of course, we want to make it as easy as possible to anybody to just onboard that and not worry about it. It's like taking care of, cool, let's focus on the business case. So like it should be. Now, related on the business cases and related on surfaces, which we have, this is actually a cool update from the Teams JavaScript SDK version 2. So there's an update on the public preview. So Teams apps in office.com and Office apps for Windows. And this is really, again, recapping on the fact that this is the fact that you can actually take a Teams applications and surface them also in office.com and Office in Windows. So really, really cool stuff. So Saki is really he's the principal PM lead on the team of PMs working on this one, and extending again the reach of those Teams application in multiple new locations. So really, really cool stuff. Outlook and Word and so on, and Excel. And of course, the team is always looking for feedback. So please report any issues in the GitHub and engage. Let them know what works, what doesn't work, and if there's any issues for you to get started. So it's super, super important. So.
Yes, and also interestingly, like, if you think about this ability, what would you like to see? What scenarios does this enable you to do? What else could you envision with that, and what the team should take into account to perhaps introduce at some point?
Yes.
Like the things that would help you build more compelling apps.
Yeah, and that comes back on the discussion which we had just before we started going through the articles, which is the engineers and PMs in Redmond and in Microsoft, they don't necessarily build real-world scenarios. They build a platform for real-world scenarios. And yes, we do research, and yes, we investigate, and yes, we do interviews. But still, having the input from the real-world ISVs and partners is the key because that's where the tooling is getting built for. So everything what we do in Microsoft 365 platform is intended to help our customers and partners. So we need to know what's needed. So in a constructive way. So telling something that doesn't work, different discussion. But what doesn't work? How can I make it work for you? And I understand. And anyway, so moving on the list of new articles. So Ika Bas from the Cloud Advocates team, Waldek's teammate, had the weekly blog post related on Learn from the Community, a chatbot for Microsoft Teams personal apps and group chat, and again, a video explaining the case and having discussion with the community members building experiences for Microsoft Teams. So these are really good. Coming back on even on the discussion today with Vardhaman, so coming back on understanding what other people are building, how they're building that, what's the scenario, to kind of spark ideas and being like, oh, that's actually really cool. What if we would, in our case, do this? Oh, that's worth of billions, and and hopefully that's the case. Now, we also had a blog post related on the Viva Connection custom design guidance updates for custom cards and quick views. And this is basically something which we've been working. I think the first update came during the holiday season, and then we've been working on adding additional samples available on the Viva Connection card. And this really focuses on the fact that quite often the first impression with the Viva Connection might be that, well, the UX and Viva Connection cards is based on adaptive cards. Can adaptive cards look nice? And the answer is yes. And they can actually look pretty cool and pretty nice. That requires some level of work to make it happen. But what we've done is that we provided samples in GitHub, which you can download and reuse, and they're all being presented in the documentation as well for Viva Connection. And it basically demonstrates the power of adaptive cards as well. And by the way,
really nice.
Really, really cool that from the sample in the GitHub, is you can find it, you can download the JSON, all of that, but you can actually open it in Designer. So you can actually go then to the adaptive card Designer and see it in there. And then you can actually preview that is really cool. With the right thing. So we're really working with the adaptive card team of making things happen. And now if I go to preview mode, I can actually see that there's a Nice.
Carousel? Yeah. Wow. This looks really sweet.
You can do image carousels in adaptive cart. That's insane. Well, yeah, kind of.
Today I learned.
Yeah, exactly. So really, really cool stuff. Good. Then we had a new Interest Zone podcast with Mark Cashman and talking with Michelle and Ben, and really focusing on the Microsoft lists. What is it? Microsoft list?
MSA.
MSA. Okay, so there we go. So that's the MSA discussion. Now, even for me as a Microsoft employee, I was like, Microsoft list MSA. What is an MSA again?
Microsoft accounts.
Personal accounts, yes. Microsoft list for personal accounts, or Microsoft list for consumers, maybe. I don't know.
So basically, would it be the same account that you have for Hotmail from way back when, Outlook.com nowadays?
OneDrive
is that also the same account?
That's true. Yes, exactly. The same account as Xbox. Yes, that is true. That's actually the same.
I don't have an Xbox, so I don't know, but
yeah. But that's your basically non-work account, because quite often you have
non-school, non-work.
Yes, non-school, not work, and then your personal account, where at least in my case, all of the games which our kid is buying, all of the Xbox installations, all of that is based on that account. So, and now you can actually start using Microsoft lists for those accounts as well for free. So, and it's in preview. So really, really cool discussion.
So you can keep track of all the games you bought in a list.
That is true, rather than necessarily doing that in Excel. Well, maybe you'll actually see them from the account.microsoft.com. But anyway, so that's a separate discussion. But really very cool. You can create lists and share those with your, let's say, loved ones or family, and then access all of the lists together and then share information. So maybe we're using, for example, on OneNote with my wife for shopping notes and shopping lists. So maybe we'll move to use Microsoft List for that. So.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, right, that the first impression people get when they talk about lists, like to do. So what is the difference between to do? Well, lists aren't necessarily only for tasks.
Yes.
Basically anything that you can have, it can be a list of people, list of whatever. Yep. Any kind of list you can think of, it can be that, right? It doesn't need to be a task. So,
yes.
And the cool thing is that when you create a list, there are a few templates from which you can choose, which are kind of inspiring of what you could use it for. So with that, like, give it a try, have a look what is available. And I bet that probably over time, there will be more templates available, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So additional templates in this side, and then of course enterprise side, there is already an opportunity of creating custom templates. And simple examples would be something like you're getting prepared for a holiday trip in your country or outside of country. You need to make a notes on what are the things which we need to take into account, what are the things which we need to back to the backs and all of that stuff. So just having a location where you can collaborate with other people in a constructive means. So constructive ways. English is so hard. Efficient
way, quickly. Yes. You need to easily, you can just easily collaborate with others.
Now you start sounding like a marketing person. Now,
we're all in marketing.
Yeah, kind of. That's true. Now, so this one, connecting to SharePoint Online using managed identity with granular access permissions, and this is really, really cool from Stian Strusse. And really focused on the granular permission on the Azure AD application. So using the site selected graph scope and how that actually works, and explaining the details and creating the application and then granting those permissions. So this is already getting us towards the back on what we used to have with OAuth and SharePoint add-ins in some level. So you can actually grant permissions of an application in a site collection level in a specific sites. And that's already a really good step forward. Maybe one thing to call out though is that you need to be an administrator to actually grant those permissions still. So you as a site collection administrator, you cannot grant permission to that site collection. So, which is then maybe potentially the next step forward in the future. So we'll see. But again, this is already enabling us to have an applications which have a permissions not cross the whole tenant, but rather on a specific site, which is really, really cool.
Exactly. And also, you don't need to use a service account, no credentials laying around, no secrets that expire. Like, so these are basically the two things, like why this solution is really, really key.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to call out Jeremy Kelly from my team, who's been pushing on this. He's the PM, and not about Jeremy Fake, obviously, in Crash Site has been pushing ODSP team to make this happen, and then Jeremy Kelly is the one who's been PMing on this one. So, so many Jeremys. Now, then Peter Wenstra had a new blog post on copy SharePoint files from one tenant to another using Power Automate, and that's actually pretty cool as well. So if you need to transition or publish things across the tenants, you can actually do that with Power Automate. And Peter actually walks through that scenario and how it can be done with Power Automate and Automate. And Peter is really sharing a lot of great tips related on Power Automate in his blog, with a weekly or even daily process of new stuff and findings, which is super cool. Thank you, Peter, on that. Now, we also had a new videos from the Cloud Advocate team. So Dan Walling, he's one of the key cloud advocates for Microsoft 365, and he had a nice, cool video related on building real-time collaborative app in the real-time collaborative app series. And this video is about using the Fluid framework. So how do you actually use that within your application for real-time collaboration in the same document? So the Fluid framework is really the technology behind of the Microsoft Loop and those Loop components as Microsoft Teams, but you can actually take that into account, into use in your custom application as well. So really cool 20 minutes on that. That's a great lunch break time to watch and learn while you're eating. So, but that's what I do in my lunch, because this is my lunchroom. So
I don't.
Matter of a preference. I go out with the dogs on the morning, so you'll have
there you go.
Daytime. Exactly.
I don't have a dog even. There you go. Right.
Yeah. Okay. I highly recommend. No, never mind. Now, we have 2 dogs and 2 cats. You want one? So anyway. So Tom Morgan had a really cool video as well, 20 minutes again, actually, from a timing perspective, which is actually showing how would you take your Teams application and get it actually exposed also in Outlook. So this is really around what Zaki was showing us in the previous slide, so the Teams JavaScript SDK v2, and then Tom Morgan, who's an MVP focused on the Teams development, is showing how that can be done in practice and in real world. So just the same use case example in both applications. So really cool. If I'm not mistaken, actually the to-do list is one of the samples in the Teams Toolkit v3, which actually has the kind of a starting point for showcasing the power of the V2 SDK. So,
yeah.
So in the Teams Toolkit v3, you can actually go and create a new solution based on a sample, and it's available there as okay, so cool, I can have a starting point based on this sample. So really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Now, we also had, we wanted to talk about some scripts. So just to point out, so Paul Bullock is leading the effort with all of the awesome contribution from the community of collecting Microsoft 365 specific script samples into a single repository. So this is really intended to make sure that the really cool, useful samples are not stored across the world in a GitHub and nobody finds them. Let's actually surface them in one location. So I can come in here and say, I'm looking for stuff around migration, and I will find scripts related on migration, or I'm looking into doing something related on product and in Microsoft Graph, and I will have access on Microsoft Graph specific script or capabilities or automation and all of that. So authentication with and call with Microsoft Graph and all of that, but you have samples available to take advantage. That's really the key in here. Now, in here, just a good example of a great collaborative community-driven work is to list all external users in all site collections, which have been provided in CLI for Microsoft 365 with SharePoint Online Management Cell and PnP PowerShell. So it's a great example of multiple people. So Albert Jan, Paul, and Chandani working together one by one, contributing an individual sample. So really cool stuff. Again, and it's then a matter of an opinion and preference. Do you want to use CLI, SPO Management Cell, PnP PowerShell? So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also related on these samples, so we do also have other samples. So this one is for the Viva Connections. So we do have SP Dev FX ACs really focused on the Viva Connection adaptive card sample repos, and one of the new samples there this week. So this is first of all managed by Derek and David Warner. So this repo as a submission side, and then one of the new samples in this repo was from Sumi Sorav and Somadeep. I do apologize on the pronunciation, but basically, let's see if I can get this zoom in. Football staffs in an ACE, so really kind of showcasing the integration of an ACE to an external API. And this is actually not really that somebody would necessarily use this in their real-world UX and real-world mobile experience, but it showcased connecting to an external API and then surfacing that information using adaptive card technologies in an ACE, which we tend to have all of these samples shown in the desktop, but the primary use case obviously is in a mobile side of the house. So accessing that card and information quickly using the mobile. So great work over there. And that's it for now. So what's happening this week? I have a pretty relaxed week coming up.
Oh, really? Well,
this moment, as this one goes live, I should have gone already to spa, cross-country skiing, and hanging somewhere else. So
yeah, I might have answered a few emails, met a few people. On the other hand, if you are not there, then I will
half of your time
not meet anybody. Yeah, exactly. Like half of my time is like, yes. What will I do? Right. So one of the things that I'm currently working on is trying to see how we can integrate MSAL Angular with Teams, right? I'm trying to build a web app with SSO for Teams that works both inside Teams as well as outside Teams, just as a web app. And ideally, I want to see if there's a way to do it in a way that you don't need to basically rebuild the app twice and do all the calls twice, do auth twice. So let's funnel the different ways in which we obtain a token into a single place, and from that just have app like one consciousness about a user. Yep. Right, so I'm working on that. Another thing that is interesting is also thinking more about the Angular part is I'm working with a few other guys in our bigger team to see like how could we improve the development experience for Angular devs around Teams. Like imagine you are an Angular dev, you use Angular CLI, like that is your toolchain. How could we plug into that to let you easily create a Teams tab with SSO enabled and with all the artifacts like having an AAD app, deploying the app to Teams and whatnot. So we're experimenting around that. We're making some good progress there. So I hope that in the next few weeks or so, I hope that we will be able to share more. So definitely stay tuned for that. And other than that, we're working on a few concepts for CLI for Microsoft 365. Like the other day, we released a preview version with CLI with an API so that you can use CLI as dependency in whatever you're building to call commands. You don't need to go through shell and then back, but you can just call it as an API as dependency. And then another thing that we're working on together with Alex Terentia from the SPFX team is to offer a command that allows you to verify integrity of your SPFX project. So are your dependencies set up correctly? Do you have anything defined twice or in a way that might be not the best way around it? So we want to find ways like how can we check the project you build and verify that it's built the right way.
It's actually awesome to have Alex on the team because Alex has a real-world ISV experience building on top of SPFX for Microsoft Teams and of course for SharePoint. So now that he's inside of Microsoft helping on things, he's really making a big difference. So really, really cool for that. Now, in my case, of course, right now, this week, as this goes live, we're having a family vacation. But last week, we released the SharePoint Framework 1.14, which at the time of this recording hasn't yet happened, but it's going to happen within.
So you're taking a bet. You're going there on a limb, like, I hope we did, because otherwise we need to cut it.
No, and let me be clear. It's ready to get released. We pushed out for just a scheduling and scheduling reasons 1 day forward. So it was basically a decision made and late Wednesday evening to push it on Thursday morning Pacific time. So just basically marketing reasons, so nothing more than that. So it's ready to go. It's just a matter of clicking a button. So,
woohoo!
Yay! But that's really cool. So 1.14 is out, and then 1.15 is coming still this half. So or scheduled to get out by end of June with additional capabilities, and then hopefully 2 more versions by end of this year in SPFX, and really focusing again on the improvements in Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Viva, and of course SharePoint absolutely as well. So
cool.
But cool. I think that's it for now. So thanks everybody for watching, listening, and we'll be back with the new PnP Weekly within a week. Cheers.
Yes. Well, actually, yes, when you listen to this, it's going to be a week. I'm like, we're not going to be back next week because you're not there. But yeah, it's going to be, by the time you listen to this, it's going to be next week. Definitely. Stay tuned.
Exactly. Stay tuned. Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.